Hey everyone, and thank you for joining Zweig Group Media and the Zweig Letter exclusive interview series. With almost 25 years of continuous coverage of the design industry, the Zweig Letter is a constant in an ever-changing marketplace. We are bringing you some of the best and brightest minds that our industry has to offer. Today, I am pleased to welcome Mr. Tim Carl, CEO of HGA Architects and Engineers based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Tim, it's great to have you join us today. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks, Randy.
Oh, great.
Good to be here.
It's good to have you. As I was telling you before we started this interview, we certainly want to learn a little bit more about you. But instead of me reading off a litany of things about your firm, why don't you tell us a little bit about HGA?
So HGA has a really kind of awesome legacy. You said based in Minneapolis. It's actually founded in Minneapolis, but now we are an 8-office national firm that still has a lot of things being managed out of Minneapolis, but we are actually expanding kind of how we're led kind of across the firm.
Okay.
But there's a great legacy. We were founded in 1953 by our two of our founding partners, Kurt Green and Dick Hamill. Mm-hmm. And then the third partner, Bruce Abrahamson, came in, I think, about 56 or 57. And they just had a really good, unique approach to the work. It was very collaborative, uniquely collaborative. They studied under Walter Gropius and the Bauhaus and, wanted to bring artists and architects and engineers together to, solve problems. And it's been a real important part of our legacy and one we've really tried to uphold. We have grown. We are today, again, I think I said 8 offices. We have 4 offices in California, Minneapolis, Milwaukee, a small office in Rochester, and then almost 6 years ago, we opened an office in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
And I think part of what we're experiencing now is really how we tie all those offices together, but also give them the ability to guide themselves as well.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, it's obviously you've got, like you said, 8 offices, over almost 700 people. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Wow, that's a big team. And I'm assuming the largest group are right there in Minneapolis.
They are,
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that's awesome.
We have about 250 here in Minneapolis, including engineers and architects.
Okay.
We have the largest engineering group also in Minneapolis. And then our Milwaukee office was really the second office founded in the 1980s.
Okay.
And they have about 150 folks there. So.
Okay. All right. Well, so let's just, I'm gonna roll this back just a little bit. And I had a chance to look at your bio, and I know that you were named to the Progressive Architecture's Young Architects in 1993. And while that seems like a generation ago, I guess technically it was.
I'm not that old.
I know, and I'm not that old either. So just bear with me. That's fine. Tell me what that did for your career at that point in time. It was before you joined HGA, I think, and
right.
So that was kind of. I'm just curious to know because we actually have an audience of younger engineers and architects and landscape architects and planners that are listening to the podcast and watching these interviews, and I always want to make sure that we're providing them with some helpful information that they can use as they course correct through the early part of their career and look to inspiration and certainly I was inspired by just seeing that you were bestowed with that back in 93. And I'm just curious what that did for your career and how that impacted you.
I'm not sure what it did for my career. It felt important at the time, obviously. I think the most important story behind that recognition was that I think it's one of the few times that progressive architecture, which no longer exists, it's turned out is Architect magazine does something similar, but that's one of the few times that they awarded that to a group. Okay. So we had a collective kind of group of young talent at Ellery Beckett, now AECOM, that had been working so well together and had made such an impact as a group that we really decided that we needed to submit as a team. And I just love that story because I think often In architecture, we tend to celebrate an individual or, look at architects more as artists sometimes. And I think at least in the publicity, or ignore sometimes the real collective effort that's needed to do the work really well.
Okay. How big was that team?
Oh, shoot. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it was 6 people total.
So you guys were almost like the Rat Pack of architecture at the time, huh?
All in our 20s. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no,
I was the oldest.
You were the oldest.
20s, but definitely.
Keeping everybody in line, I'm sure. So. Yeah, no, well, that's good. I mean, I always like, you see all these 30 under 30 and 40 under 40 and all these different awards that people can gain at a young age. And I know sometimes I'm always wondering what that does for their career long term, right? When you think of that. And so I always like to hear these stories of how, individuals that were bestowed with some of these awards at a young age, how it ultimately impacted them. And obviously, CEO of HGA, you're not doing too bad for yourself. So I think that's a good thing. So, staying in the same vein of awards and accolades, and obviously, and I think in 2015, you guys were a Zweig Group Hot Firm Award winner. I want to say you guys are maybe number 38 or something like that, which, is a great honor. Certainly, I'm just curious and then I looked at your website, and I mean, there's probably like 10 or 15 pages of awards that you guys as a firm have won for your design and for your work on a multitude of projects all over the place. And so, I mean, what do those awards, those specific awards mean to you personally? And ultimately, how have they impacted your firm, when it comes to getting new business and even, certainly in the area that I focus in of recruiting, how has that helped you guys attract great talent to your firm?
I think that's, when I was younger, I wanted to work, with firms that were doing great work. And one recognition of that, or one understanding of that, is through the awards that the firms have won. And even as I was on projects where we were winning design awards, it was just a motivation and an understanding and a reward and a recognition that just made you feel good. Yeah. But the older I got and the more I became, a leader on a project, and the more I was connected, even most directly with the clients, I still want to win awards. I want to be recognized for the beauty and the function of the work. But the real reward is when the clients appreciate the award just as much. Right. That they recognize an integration of, ideas and function and beauty that makes it worth it to them as well. It's not as rewarding if the clients aren't kind of right there with you.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and certainly, you always want to put your best foot forward, I think, as an organization to show what is possible now as well as in the future. So, and again, I think just with the whole talent piece, what we hear nowadays in the marketplace, especially from people that we recruit or we talk to about different opportunities, is, they all want to work at a firm that is making a difference. Right. And I think, at the end of the day, that's what resonates with people. And especially, this whole millennial group that we're working with now, and there is a different sense or sensibility that a lot of these young people have that maybe even you and I didn't have when we were in our 20s. And I think it was just a different focus. And so I think kind of being able to show or highlight, some of those great things that a firm is doing and the difference that it is making in the lives of the individuals that physically utilize those creations, as well as those that actually look at it on a daily basis, that to me is a game changer, and it makes a world of difference.
Well, I think right now there's a traditional kind of look at awards as really about the aesthetic of any project. And I think what I love about how this is evolving is, especially with the next generation, it's much more important that it is a variety of things that come together in terms of the impact that a project has. In addition to aesthetics, it's sustainability, and it's the impact that it can have on the culture of a community. So.
Yeah. Well, speaking of culture of a community, I understand that you took a trip down to Argentina, and maybe you convinced your family to come along with you. I'm not sure, but what was that like as an architect? I understand that the architecture down there is absolutely astounding, and from what I've heard about some of the countries and major cities in South America, that it's almost got this European feel to it. But tell us about your Argentinian experience.
That's a great question. It was amazing, and I think in large part due to the fact that we have very good friends who live in Argentina.
Okay.
So we got to have guides and people who we love with us and really kind of showing us a layer deeper than you might get on your own.
Right.
We got to go all over the country. We got to drive with our friends into the Salta region and into the mountains, and as high as I think about 13,000 feet in this mountainous area. We got to go to Iguazu Falls. It was incredible. My wife and both my boys, we were all together. And then we got to spend on the front end and the back end significant amount of time in Buenos Aires.
Okay.
And I just love that city.
Yeah.
Got to spend a lot of time in a number of neighborhoods. And there's an incredible kind of cohesion mixed with diversity.
Yeah.
You go from one neighborhood to the other, and there's a beauty that speaks to kind of the culture, both specifically to that area and also more largely to the place. I think one of my favorite things architecturally was the cemetery in Recoleta.
Okay.
Oh my God, it's like a little city and just incredible. I could have spent all day there. At one point, my kids were like, okay, yeah, that's enough. Can we go somewhere else now? We're in a cemetery.
This is freaking me out.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, have you, since we're on the subject of Argentina and I guess maybe, these foreign cities, have you guys, your firm, ever thought about, or have you guys done any work outside of the United States at all?
We've been very opportunistic. We have not sort of strategically or holistically attacked, chased some part of the world outside of the U.S.
Right.
So the majority of our work is within the U.S., but we have some very strategic initiatives right now, specifically in our healthcare practice, and then where we have a national reputation in both healthcare and also in the arts. We are looking at either following national clients overseas or actually finding strategic clients. So we're not trying to blanket a certain area. We're just trying to find strategic opportunities that are the right kind of projects for us to work on.
So, Tim, tell us a little bit about what it's been like to grow HGA from, where you guys were at the beginning to a 700-person firm. I mean, obviously, that didn't happen overnight, and I'm assuming that I know you had alluded to how some of the offices have grown, but I know that there was some M&A activity in there. But tell us a little bit about how that happened.
I think maybe important to this story is that there are definite Midwest roots to the firm and how we've grown. We began in Minneapolis in the Twin Cities in 1953. In the 80s, we sent two people to Milwaukee, and they started a very successful practice that has grown very well. And we've kind of defied the odds for many, many years in terms of being able to access more national profile projects across the country from the Midwest. Mm-hmm. That's not easy to do.
Right.
So at the turn of the century, like 1999, we began to look at California, and kind of across the last 15 years have grown to have 4 offices in California. We have Los Angeles, San Francisco, Sacramento, and San Jose is the most recent. They're a great corporate interiors focused firm working with some great tech companies across the country, and then about almost 6 years ago, we acquired a DC office. So I think where we're at right now, Randy, is really some very important growing pains in terms of bringing kind of the growth and maturity to our coastal offices, which are still sort of young compared to our Midwestern offices. And so I think there's a big focus in terms of how we build just as strong of a regional presence on both those coasts. And then I think another big part of the equation is how we then leverage our national kind of talent and resources, and how you have a really effective network of thinking that can cross all those offices and kind of lift every office up. That's a huge part of what we're going through right now.
Okay. So, and with those growing pains that you mentioned, I'm just curious, how do you maintain that Midwestern culture in some far-flung areas, like the coast, the different, the East Coast and the West Coast, but still maintain that, that Midwestern sensibility that kind of made the firm to be what it is today?
That's a controversial question. I'm going to try to answer it. I would say that in many cases you can't sort of espouse a Midwestern culture if you're working on the coasts. It doesn't always work. Yeah. However, I think in terms of the type of people that we are looking to bring into the firm, anywhere in the firm, coasts, Midwest, I think we're looking for a kind of a character that is, driven by understanding clients and listening to clients. And, there's a Midwestern sensibility that, because I'm from the Midwest, I feel that. I'm not going to label it that, but I think there is some sense that is part of our DNA, and it does impact kind of how we act kind of everywhere in the firm.
Okay.
But we're not necessarily branding that as something that we would talk about out loud. I guess I am right now, but it's a really good question.
Okay, well, good. So, and then the other thing that comes to mind as we talk about this, as we talk about just acquisition and firm culture, I mean, where do you see HGA in the next 3 to 5 years? I mean, I just feel like we're in the design industry as a whole, we're on the cusp of some major changes in the next 5 to 10 years as a whole. And so, as the leader of this 700-person firm, where do you see yourself, and where do you see the industry going in the next 3 to 5 years?
That's an easy question. Just kidding. We're having some amazing conversations across the firm right now about that exact question. I would say that part of the conversation is coming back to our legacy and understanding how even more applicable it is today than it even was then. And that is this idea of creating a collective intelligence where we really utilize the diversity of talent and opinions and disciplines and gender and generation to strengthen kind of the quality of our ideas. So how we make that just an expectation in our culture in every office, in every practice group, and then how we use that as a strength that ties us together as a national firm is a huge part of where we have to go. I think what we're seeing is that the firms that can dive deeper strategically into what clients are going to need in the future are going to be more successful. Almost seeing, in many cases, we're turning into strategic consultants that it's just as important to understand kind of, pre-project, post-project, how we're helping clients sort of guide, how we help to guide them on a path. There's just a level of complexity to understanding that, and we have to go deeper, and we know we can do that better as a team than as individuals. And so that's, again, a part of the answer, something we're really trying to strengthen in the firm.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, obviously teamwork is extremely important, and especially across multiple locations and on multiple projects and teams. So that certainly goes without saying. I would have to say, I think one of the things that we're seeing as an overall or overarching theme in this industry is just the ability to continue to find good talent, and that's always going to be a problem, right? Because I think at the end of the day, you're only as good as the people that you have on your staff. And so, that certainly goes without saying, but that's fine. I mean, these are some of the conundrums that leaders in the design industry are going to have to continue to grapple with. And certainly, I think new opportunities will present themselves in the marketplace that will maybe address some of the talent issues. Opportunities will present themselves in the marketplace to allow for easier acquisitions and easier ways for firms to work together in a more symbiotic relationship, if you will. So I think the next 5 to 10 years are going to be very interesting for sure. So
I think just one aspect of that, I totally agree with the talent, the importance of talent and how hard it is right now, and it's going to continue to get harder. One of the things we're trying to do is that by really leveraging diversity in our practice, that there's an appeal to that. People see diversity. They see, empowering kind of generations, younger generations. They see empowering women. They see racial diversity, and that's going to make us more attractive. And so that's something that's very important to us right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's going to be amazing. Tim, thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule to be with us on the Zweig Letter interview series. We really appreciate that.
Randy, a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, great. Well, listen, folks, as a reminder, all Zweig Group Media programs like this one are available in both podcast and video format, free for download on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube, just to name a few places. We'd like to thank you for watching this in video or listening to the podcast by offering you a free copy of the Zweig Letter. Just visit info.zweiggroup.com/free TZL. A link to all of this information will be in our show notes. And we'd love it if you'd share this link with a friend. I'm Randy Wilburn, and you've been listening to Zweig Group Media, part of Zweig Group. Remember, we exist to make you more successful. Bye for now.